What I've noticed is that many of us carry quite a heavy burden in our lives. I think there's a Scottish proverb about somebody who might carry a bent nail in their pocket to describe somebody who holds a grudge. Well, the problem is that many of us might have learned a grudge of some kind, and it might have begun with an initial trauma in our lives. It may be something like parental divorce. It may be something like worse, like abuse. It may be self-esteem negativity. It may be just the messages that you received growing up, or it may be the breakdown of a relationship. It can be any number of things. One of my major traumas in life was the breakdown of a relationship in my early 30s, and this cast a shadow and cast a lot of shade over my subsequent marriage. And I had to come to terms with where I might be culpable for any problems that occurred in my marriage, as indeed anybody else will have to do. So, if we're looking at gratitude and we're looking at forgiveness, we've got to think about where to start, because the alternative is too horrible to consider if you think. Take somebody like Kurt Cobain, who had the trauma of parental divorce, which led him to seek the adulation and approval of strangers by becoming the incredible musician that he was. But unfortunately, none of that could actually fill the void. It would have been preferable if somebody could have got to Kurt Cobain before he killed himself at the young age of 27. But of course, he wouldn't have been moving in the right circles, because one of the compounding effects of trauma is that we may seek to feed our own negative feedback loops by only being around people who are going to tell us what we want to hear and who are going to compound and reinforce and amplify our own biases. So, let's have a look at the idea of forgiveness. Forgiveness takes a certain amount of skill. I'm not going to suggest that forgiveness is a come to Jesus moment. I'm going to suggest that forgiveness is a skill set that we have to work on by increasing our ability to reflect and to be empathetic and to walk in other people's shoes as well as our own. It may be that the person who caused such grief to you was carrying their own trauma and visited it upon you. The way that you may differ from the person who visited their trauma on you is that you have the ability right now, here, every day, to reset. Excuse me. Bear in mind that you may be operating with faulty software, and you may need to defrag, and you may need to reboot. And learning to forgive and learning the skill of forgiveness is the journey of a lifetime. But it's two-sided too. There are two sides to forgiveness. One side of the coin is taking the external lens and learning how to forgive other people. But the other side of the coin is turning that lens on yourself and learning how to forgive yourself. So have an idea or two of your own. Instead of replicating somebody else's power, instead of feeding into the paradigm which that other person or situation visited upon you. Start to form your own idea about what you deserve in your life and how you can reboot and make essential changes. Learn to forgive the other people, but above all, learn to forgive yourself. You are not to blame. I'm just going to try and adjust this because it's kind of slipping down a bit. That's better. And having learned to forgive yourself, then you can start to train your attention on situations in the past. Go back, ask yourself, who were you then? How did you act? How did you act subsequently? And did how you acted set in train a compounding factor which has now caused you to be hardwired into an old age of being messed up? And ask yourself, is this what you want? Ask yourself, isn't life too short? One of the purposes of the Grey Pill playlist on the Silver Tsunami channel is to encourage people to grow old disgracefully. And by disgracefully, I mean by confounding the everyday. Confound an idea or two of your own. Instead of replicating somebody else's power, instead of feeding into the paradigm which that other person or situation visited upon you, start to form your own idea about what you deserve in your life and how you can reboot and make essential changes. Learn to forgive the other people, but above all, learn to forgive yourself. You are not to blame. I'm just going to try and adjust this because it's kind of slipping down a bit. That's better. And having learned to forgive yourself, then you can start to train your attention on situations in the past. Go back, ask yourself, who were you then? How did you act? How did you act subsequently? And did how you acted set in train a compounding factor which has now caused you to be hardwired into an old age of being messed up? And ask yourself, is this what you want? Ask yourself, isn't life too short? One of the purposes of the Grey Pill playlist on the Silver Tsunami channel is to encourage people to grow old disgracefully. And by disgracefully, I mean by confounding the everyday, confounding common perceptions. Instead of just going with the flow, time to turn around little salmon and go against the flow. Get out there and spawn a bit. The second element that I suggest can be instrumental in getting you through is to learn how to be grateful. Gratitude is another skill set that you can learn. It's a skill set that you can teach yourself through gritted teeth, and it may feel counterintuitive. But what if you just start noticing the things around you for which you're grateful? Here's a good one. You're not Kurt Cobain. The trauma that was visited upon you is something that you have survived. You are literally a survivor. Start with that little nugget, and then start to notice that the sun is shining. The air you breathe is relatively clean. You have loved ones in your wake, or you have loved ones in your future. Start to learn to be grateful, record it, and develop that muscle. Develop the skill set. Now, if you like what you're hearing, here's the obligatory click and subscribe message. Give it a shot. What's the worst that could happen? I'm going to finish up now by saying that when I learned to be grateful, and when I learned to forgive myself and others, my life improved. And I like to think that I'm setting myself up for the third stage of my life with a much more positive outlook. I'm not talking Pollyanna positive. I'm talking positive, which is a different kind of feedback loop. It's a positive feedback loop. It's a feedback loop which heightens my own sense of worth, and it also heightens my own appreciation of other people. If I can do anything with the Grey Pill playlist on the Silver Tsunami channel, it is to try and encourage people to learn the skills to grow old disgracefully. Apologies for the rather black and white shading. I can't control the sun. I'm working on it, but I can't, not yet. All I can do is control my little channel. Put it out there, see what happens. If you're watching this, thank you for watching this far, and I will be back next week with another episode of the Grey Pill.